Hi Flosstube, welcome to my channel. My name is Jess, my pronouns are she and her, and I'm cross-stitch Jess here on Flosstube and over on Instagram. This is Alfie. He's in a very clingy, cuddly mood today, so yeah, we'll see how that goes. Yeah, welcome back if you're returning, welcome if you're new. I've had quite a lot of new subscribers since my last video. Thank you again to Lauren from Flossabilities and also Rach from Talking Dog Stitchery, who have given me shout outs recently and really encouraged people to come in and subscribe. It has gotten us past the 1,000 subscribers mark, which is a bit nuts. I still can't believe that anyone has watched this, let alone that many people. But yeah, I'm really glad to have you all along on this crazy, chaotic, messy journey with me. Yeah. Cute story, John was my 1,000th subscriber, and when Rachel gave me a couple of shout outs earlier in the week and the number sort of was going up pretty consistently, he literally sat there with his phone open on the page refreshing it, because he was determined to be the 1,000th, and in his words, he didn't get to be the first subscriber, so this was his next best option. So yeah, that was really cute. He's a good egg. He's a keeper. As a bit of a thank you to all of you for joining me on this, I do have some giveaways. I'm going to spread them out throughout the episode, just to break things up a bit. But yeah, I've got 5 because I can't do things. I can't think of the word smallly. It's not a word. Oh my god. Okay, yeah, so we've got a bunch of giveaways. The bulk of this episode though, so I have a teeny stitching update. I've literally only got 2 projects to show you. I've actually worked on 3, but one of them is a model stitch, so I can't show that for now, but I am going to be recording like a Past Jess segment later this afternoon, so that when that is released I can show you all that pattern. I've really enjoyed it, and I've stitched them monogamously and got, I think, about 6,000 or 7,000 stitches done in about 10 days, which I'm pretty proud of. So yeah, small stitching update, and then the bulk of this video is going to be my much promised top-down how to do the sewing method tutorial. So we're going to do the stitching update and some of the giveaways, and then I'll swap to a top-down view and we'll do the tutorial and the rest of the giveaways. So first things first, let's start with some fabric that you can win. I cannot get this to show up properly on camera. It looks like it's neon pink, but it's actually more of a purpley colour, I think. It really depends on what light you look at it in, but it is not that pink. The camera isn't going to show up very well. I was going to use pink or purple as the keyword, but that's it's very open to debate. I feel like John and I have this debate with board games quite often, whether it's the same kind of colour that we struggle with, whether to call it pink or purple. So this is a piece of 18 count from Luella's Hand Dyed Fabrics, who's a local fabric dyer. It's 16 by 23 inches, so roughly a fat quarter. And the keyword for this is going to be count. So as I say, this one is 18 count. It is hand dyed, so it's possibly even a little bit smaller than that. But the magic word, if you would like to win this, is count. And for all but one of these giveaways, I'll specify when we get to that one, open internationally. So I will, assuming that there is a postal service that goes from here to you, I will post this to you. So that is our first giveaway that you could win. Yay. Right, stitchy update. I'm going to show the little one first. This literally only had maybe an hour's worth of work when I was having my hair done this weekend. Ooh, things falling out. So this is a Mill Hill Buttons and Beads. It's the Aurora Borealis kit. And I'm stitching this with all the called for, the kit perforated paper. Oh, I still have a needle poking out of it. Let me just attach that somewhere. There we go. So this is where we're up to. So I've started colour completing on this one, so all I did was carry this blue up here. This is very much like a grab it travel project kind of thing. My hairdresser has insisted that I take it back in and show him when it's done. Well, specifically, he wanted me to show him a picture of it finished the next time I get my hair cut in about 8 to 10 weeks. We know that's not happening. But I told him I'd bring it back so he could see the progress, which, being realistic, probably going to be no progress. But maybe this will just be my hairdresser, my hair appointment project for the next 2 to 5 years. Maybe it will be done by the end of that. Who knows? Anyway, every stitch is one stitch closer. So that was one. Project number 2, I think I said on my previous video that I was going to be working on. So this is my twisted band sampler. I have already tried to film this once and showing it. I'm not very good at showing tall, long projects, so bear with me. Twisted band sampler is one that I started for my birthday last year. Excuse the poking out thread here, I frogged the wrong bit. So I have chosen my own colour palette for it, which you can see there. It's not perfect. There are still things I would change, but for the sake of my own sanity, we've just gone with it. And what I've done, I had already stitched this top corner and finished the first, I think, 3 colours. First 4 colours. What I've done, now that I've picked all my colours, is I've gone all the way down the side and across the bottom to effectively lock those colours in. So there's no coming back from this. I'm not frogging or changing any of these. I've finished that very bottom corner. And the reason that I've done this is partly to lock in the colours so I can't keep changing my mind, and partly, I'll try and do a scroll again. This went really badly last time because my arms aren't long enough. So yeah, I've started every band as a way of counting down that side. The reason that I've done this is all of the pattern instructions. For a lot of these, the stitches, the specialty stitches, are like standalone stitches that you just put next to each other. But occasionally you get ones like the outside on this band here, where it like crosses over, like the stitches continuously cross over the previous stitch. So the instructions for those describe them starting from this side, which means you start here and then work up the band. I found that for these first few, it was fine because I was working in a nerge, so the whole thing fit at once. But now we get down into these bands, I just realised with the band across the bottom, you won't be able to see that with these next bands, it won't fit in a nerge, which is why I've now got it on the scroll bars. But also what putting it on the scroll bars means, and what working all the way down the sides means, right, scroll down, is when I now work on this, I'm going to work from the bottom up, and that means I can work on a little bit of all of these bands across the bottom for a sort of section. I'll get the dopamine of finishing some bands, and then I can scroll up and continue working on, I guess, these bands here, for example, will carry on up. So I'll get to carry on working on those and start some new bits, and I'll have some band finishes. So it means that I get that variety rather than working on one band all the way from start to finish and having to keep scrolling up and up and up as it goes. There are some stitches on here, I'm really enjoying all of them, but for example, these wheat sheaf stitches are quite stitch dense, but they don't take up very much space. So they just go really slowly. It feels like you're working on them for ages and ages and you're just not really getting anywhere. So it will be nice as well to be able to mix up some of those more intensive specialty stitches with some of, like, on the flip side, this weave stitch at the bottom. I can't remember what it's called. next time I show this, I'll come better prepared with knowing what these are called. But this obviously goes quite quickly because it's long, straight stitches that fill the space very fast. So yeah, it will be nice to have that mix and to have the variety. That being said, this is now going away for a little while. We'll come to why when we get to plans, but yeah, for now that one's getting popped away. Before I do though, here are most of, not all of, but here are the colours. I'm really happy with how this has come out. There are definitely some, like, something I've learned is I'm really bad at picking a colour palette. There are some here that I'm looking at and going, wow, that's way too bright, but there aren't really paler DMC colours in the right shades, the right tones, the right colour, right word. But also how they look here versus how they look on my little swatch cards versus how they look stitched up in that little side panel versus how they look stitched up on the actual project looks different every time. There are transitions that I thought looked really, really smooth on the swatches that don't look really smooth on the fully stitched up piece. But at this point, I'm not changing it again. For anyone who's new, I've probably, over the course of the past year and a bit, put together 40, 50 different colour combinations. It's an 18 colour palette, and I've really struggled to make that pastel rainbow. So at this point, we're locked in, and I think when it's done, it will look good, and I'll be happy. I'm not good at being decisive. Cool, that is all of the stitching for now. Yeah, only 3 projects. I really wanted to get some good progress in on this before putting it away, so that has basically been my sole focus since my last video. Let's do another giveaway. So the next one, this is going to be the UK only one because that way I don't forget. And it's not these threads. I'm just holding these up as an example of one of the beautiful things that you can get. So if you have watched before, you may know I have a affiliate code. So for Talking Dog Stitchery, if you go and shop and you use Jess5, you get 5% off, and I also get a little bit of commission. I have converted some of that commission into a voucher to give away. So prize 2 is a £10 voucher for Talking Dog Stitchery. This is the one that's UK only, and it's only UK only because I know that Rach doesn't shop internationally. But here is an example of what you might choose to get with your voucher should you win. So this is my most recent thread pack. Words. Thread of the month club. Thread club. I know what I mean. So this is April, May. I don't know what it arrived at the start of May. So this is the May thread club. And I am, if you take away this pink, I'm kind of obsessed with those 4 colours. I might have to, or even just the three autumny colours. So these come in alphabetical order, so it's just coincidence that those 3 are next to each other, but I think they look amazing. That might have to be a monochrome style project at some point. Anyway, getting off topic. £10 Talking Dog Stitchery voucher, UK only, because Rachel doesn't ship abroad. And the magic word for this, I've decided to go a little bit like off-piste with some of these magic words. I feel like whenever someone gives away anything from Talking Dog Stitchery, they use the word dog, and I have decided to be awkward and different, and because I can. So the word that I would like you to use is talking instead of dog. So £10 voucher, UK only, magic word is talking. That's it for the update on the stitching. What I'm now going to do is pause, rejiggle, figure out how to get the camera to work on a top-down view, and yeah, hopefully attempt to show you how I do stitching with the sewing method. Okay, so I'm ready to start showing you the sewing method. So first things first, what is the sewing method? Effectively, it's a way of stitching. The two main things about it are that your needle goes down and then scoops back up in one motion, which means you only ever pull your thread upwards out of the fabric. You never have to sort of reach around underneath to pull it down. It has a couple of benefits. It can be quicker than what I refer to as the poke and pull method, where you sort of poke your needle into the fabric and then you reach around underneath and pull it out, and then do the same going back up. So the first benefit is it's quicker. The second for me is I find I get less tangles in my thread. I think a lot of that is because, well, maybe I don't get fewer tangles, but they always happen on the front of the fabric, so it's much easier to then resolve them because you can see what's happening. You don't have to flip your hoop or your frame or anything over to see and resolve the tangle. Alfie wants to come and sit with me, so this may cause an avalanche. Come on. No. Okay. Apologies for the added moving shadow. It is what it is. So I use this for pretty much all of my aida based stitching. The only reason I stitch in a different way is if I'm using even weave or linen, or if I'm using specialty stitches, because the tension on those is much more critical and harder to get right when you're stitching in hand. So some caveats before I actually get into the tutorial. I only use this on aida because I find if I do it on even weave or linen, the stitches slip in between the strands of the fabric. It's just much harder to get right. It probably is doable, it's just not something that I've ever, I prefer high count aidas anyway, so that would be my go-to for this method, or for pretty much any project, if I'm honest. It is easier to do this with one strand purely because you're not worrying about how the two strands lay next to each other on your fabric. But you absolutely can do it with two strands, and I do it with two strands. It's just a little bit slower. I tend to railroad, so you can railroad and do the sewing method at the same time. It's most useful, I guess, for block stitching, but I do it for all of my full coverages, which includes a lot of confetti. So first things first, a lot of people have told me that they don't stitch in hand because they get hand cramp from holding the fabric. This is quite a small piece. This is just a scrap from my stash, but I will show you as well on a big project in a minute. So my tip, I guess, is I hold the fabric. I always roll it. I always roll it forward so that my hand is mostly touching the back of the fabric. It just minimises how much you're touching your stitching, and any dirt or whatever on your hands doesn't get onto your stitches as much. But I also find this gives my hand like something bulky, I guess, to hold, and I then have my finger and thumb sort of pinching the fabric pretty much exactly where I'm stitching. So if I sort of bend it around, you can see where my finger is, and I will stitch almost by poking the needle down onto the tip of my finger and then use my finger to squeeze the fabric up to scoop up. For me, that is really important, being able to touch the back of where I'm stitching, and I find that also means I run my finger over the back of a stitch when it's finished, so if there is any kind of knotting or tangling on the back, I find it really quickly, rather than getting sort of 10 or 100 stitches further in before I realise that that's happened and have to try and resolve it. Another tip, which might seem a bit left field, is to do with how I thread my needle when I'm using this method. So if I'm using one strand, like no change, you just thread it and have your tails uneven so that you've just got one strand at the end. If I'm using two strands, what I will do is still thread. Oh, can I show this accurately? So I will thread one thread through the needle, and then pair the other ends together so that I've got two oh, not doing well here, sorry. Sorry for the jiggling. So the reason that I do this is at the eye of the needle you have as little bulk as possible. So the reason for that is as you're putting the needle down and scooping back up, it can be quite hard to pull through if there's like a really bulky chunk of thread here. It does mean that you can't really do the loop method, the loop start, which to be completely honest I've never done. I've always just tucked my tails under the first few stitches, but it really, really helps. And this is like a side tip for if you do embroidery as well. I will basically only do regular embroidery with an even number of strands so that I can use this method and minimize how much bulk there is. I guess if you were, for example, doing 2 separate strands and you thread both of them through here, you'd have twice as much thread here. It just makes that little lump that can be quite hard to pull through the fabric. So those are my sort of caveats and tips. I'm gonna get a couple of stitches in and then start showing you. So for me personally, this is how I start. I just flip it over, hold with one finger and my thumb on the other side, hold that quite tightly, and then I can flip it over. And I will do the poke and pull method for my first few stitches just to get that secured. I've just realised we're doing it with 2 strands. I'd intended 1, but we're going for 2 because that's how my needle was set up after explaining it. So first few stitches, I'll do the poke and pull method just to get it secured. And then all you're doing, in fact, let's snip that tail off because it's a little bit harder to stitch over a bulky lump of thread on the back. So all you do for the sewing method, I'm going to do a knot with railroading so you can see more easily, is you go, make sure I'm in the middle of the camera, so you're going down into one hole, and as I said, my finger is on the other side to give that bit of leverage, and you're coming back up in the adjacent hole. That's it. And then I will pull that through, and that's it. Do it again. So I'll go down in one hole, scoop, and come back up in the adjacent hole and pull it through. So you can see here I am stitching this in a column. I by default find it easiest to scoop my stitches by going down on the right. Terrible with my left and right. So I go down on the right and back up on the left. I can do like top to bottom or bottom to top, but I will typically do that by turning my fabric. Basically, like, this down and up motion is the easiest. Like, I have the best coordination at that angle. I could do diagonal this way or this way, but it just works easiest for me. You'll also notice I start my stitches in the top left, and I know that that's the opposite of a lot of stitches. So what I will do in a second is show you how you can do this method if you do it the other way and you want to stitch in columns. So you'll see I'm doing this Dutch method at the moment, and I've just come down the column doing my half stitches. All I do when I want to go and finish them off is exactly the same motion in exactly the same holes, but going up from where my last thread came out instead. I would normally pull my thread straight up, but the camera is in the way, so excuse the weird angle for that. And as I said, with 2 strands you do it's the tail from the back. Trying to work out why that stitch looked particularly chunky. Yeah, so that is the basics. And I will go back in there and then come up. So that is it. That's at its most simple, how to do a little column of those stitches. I'm gonna come back up down here because the other option is literally just exactly the same but the other way. So this is still doing that same down on the right, up on the left, but because I've started in my bottom left corner and then I'm traveling up, it makes the stitches go the other direction. So if you prefer to do your stitching the opposite way to me, and I use this method, this start at the bottom instead of the top, if I'm ever stitching on like a round robin, or something where the other person has stitched the opposite direction to me, I'll either do this where I start at the bottom and go up instead. The other option you can do is turning your project sideways. Handy tip if you're ever working on a shared project and your stitch goes the other way, the opposite way to other people, just turn it 90 degrees. And exactly the same, you can go back down again to add the top stitch. This is definitely something where your muscle memory gets quicker the more you do it. I do this quite a lot on my full coverage projects, and I'll show you Gamer in a second. You can see here, or maybe it's going to focus. So one of the, I guess, perhaps downfalls of this method is it's sometimes a little bit less accurate. I don't know how well that shows, but on the very bottom corner of this bottom stitch, I have actually missed the hole and captured one of the threads from the sort of vertical next to it. I will say, I think that is because I'm trying to look at both the camera and my stitching, and I'm not very coordinated at doing both yet. I genuinely don't think I do that very often when actually stitching this method. I think I'm also now used to doing this with one strand rather than two, which I think is also throwing me a little bit. But it's definitely like a practice makes perfect kind of thing. It's really handy for block stitching. It goes really quickly compared to poke and pull. I will say, like, if I do have like a scroll frame or an urge, I will now set it up on my Lowry stand and I will do two-handed stitching, which I can do another tutorial on another time. But yeah, that's basically it. I'm going to pause for a second, get out Gamer, which is going to be my focus project for the next month, and yeah, I'll show you how I do that for this background, because it makes this background much more tolerable doing it with sewing method. So I'll be right back. Okay, so before I talk about Gamer, I'm gonna throw in another one of the giveaways. So this one, excuse the crinkling, this one is going to be a little kit. This one is from Bothy Threads, and this was part of their advent calendar, but it's one that I possibly won't ever stitch. So you can see it's a cute little rabbit sleeping in a little sort of flowery meadow. Just going to check, can't see any of the pattern on the back, so I can show you. Comes with this thread kit and the fabric. Apologies, it is quite tightly folded, and the pattern also has these creases just where it came folded up in the advent calendar. So for this one, the magic word is going to be sleep. So, and again, I'll post this one anywhere in the world. So Bothy Threads full kit, and I think this one was an exclusive to the advent calendar, so I don't think this is one that you can just go and buy, or maybe you can, I don't know, I'm sure at some point they'll release it. So magic word, sleep. So back to sewing method, we have Gamer here, and this is another example of how I manage my thread, my fabric. So this is an absolutely massive project. It's portrait, so it's got a very long piece of fabric going this way, which is why I've rolled it up and used this magnetic cable tie trick that I've shown on a previous episode. What I will do when I'm stitching on this, particularly for this top bit, is I will sort of roll this in a cone kind of way, and that just lets me again have my finger and thumb next to this, and I will this grey background is a cushion on my lap, so I will use that to sort of hold the weight of the bulk of the fabric. So I'm just holding this piece up off of the cushion. Okay, so got my thread and I've got my first few half stitches, and then again all I'm going to do is that same scoop method, and you can see like my finger is sort of behind it just here. So when I poke down, I am sort of touching the tip of the needle to my finger, so make sure you use blunt needles for this. And then I sort of lever this needle is almost pressing against the tip of my finger to give me that leverage to sort of point back upwards and scoop the thread. It's taken me, I've had to sit when I'm doing this because I wasn't taught to do this method. I don't know where it came from. I think I've just always done it this way. But I had to sit there and really think about like how would I explain it? Like what actually am I doing? Where are my fingers under the fabric? Like why is my finger there? What is it adding to the method? But you can see like I'm quite quick now. It does mean that I can get through this background pretty fast. And I mean on this particular project I set myself the goal for absolutely no reason other than I come up with these ridiculous ideas and then I'm too stubborn to give up on them. But I came up with the idea that I wanted to be able to say I'd done a whole 1% on this project in one day. Bearing in mind it's a 200,000 stitch project, so 1% is about 2,000 stitches. I did 2,000 stitches of this background, which in one day, which I genuinely don't think would have been possible if I was using any other method. Might have been possible if I was doing 10 stitch, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Like you can see how quickly, got a little bit of a tangle on my needle here. You can see how quickly it goes. It's very mindless when you're doing a big block like this, but it means that like it takes less focus. I guess that's just block stitching in general though, isn't it? That's not something about this method. When I get to the top of a row like this, I'll finish my stitch and go diagonally down, and then at the top of the next one, so that top stitch of the row, the bottom leg will go bottom right to top left rather than top left to bottom right, but then you're back to doing exactly the same all the way down and back up again. As long as you, I mean this is the same as for any stitching, as long as you don't put your needle through a loop in the thread, you never really get tangles doing this method. And if you do, as I said, who knows whether one will happen while I'm filming this. Knowing me, I will now become butterfingers and not be able to coordinate my hand. But yeah, any knots you get will be on the front, because at any given time you've only got sort of a couple of millimeters of thread on the back and it's going in a straight line from one hole to the next. So gotten to the top here, and if you want to sew in the English method, which is where you finish each stitch on its own before you move on, all you would do is again do that bottom stitch as before, and that gives you your top half. And then instead of going straight across, try and bring this closer, I'm going to go in that top corner. Ooh, weird focus. In that top corner, and instead of going straight across, I'm going to do this on a diagonal, so it comes back out of the same hole, and that finishes your second stitch. So again, do the first is like the bottom there, and that gives you your first half a stitch, and then you go into your top. Oh, the focus is going real weird. Sorry. Come on, camera, you can do it. So in at the top right, and then back out in the bottom left, and that gives you your top leg, and also puts your thread in the right place to start the next stitch. So a lot of this, and I guess the same concept goes for when you're stitching confetti. A lot of this just comes from planning ahead, knowing where you want your next stitch to start, so that you know where you want your needle to come back up, which I think we all do to an extent anyway. You just maybe have to do it a little bit more proactively, to be sure you know where you're coming up. Any other tips I wanted to mention? So I've written down, it's a little bit harder to do where I tuck my threads on the back. With one strand it's not too bad, but if you've got an area where you've got, say, 2 strands that you've tucked behind, if you think you're having to go down and around them almost, so that can be a little bit harder, which is why I normally do poke and pull method just for securing the start of the thread. If you're doing it on the back of a heavy confetti area, again, sometimes it can be harder if there's a lot of threads on the back, to sort of go down and around them and back up. But again, it's another thing where practice definitely helps. I've already said you must use a blunt needle. Please don't go stabbing yourself with a sharp needle because of this tutorial. I do not want to be the reason that you've gotten blood all over your stitching. I'm gonna pause there, swap the camera back round, and just talk plans for a few minutes. Okay, so we're back. Before I forget, because I still have 2 to go, let's do another giveaway. The next one is going to be this pattern, which I've recently stitched. I did intend to get it off the wall, but it's now out of reach and I've already started recording, so we're going with it. If you want to see the finish of this, I think I showed it on my previous video. So yeah, this is Run with Scissors from Stacey Nash Designs. One that I've recently stitched up, and you can see on the back here the pattern is intended to be turned into a pouch. I think I might just quickly stitch this little motif as well. But yeah, so this is the 4th giveaway. Again, I will post this one anywhere in the world, and the magic word for this one is going to be meta, because it is part of my meta cross stitch wall. So META, nothing to do with the social media company. Meta as in meta cross stitch. Okay, giveaway number 4. One more to go. So plans. Today is the 5th of May, and for those of you who have watched some of my recent videos, you will have heard me talk about doing Monogamous May. I haven't actually started Monogamous May. These stitches that I've just shown you on this tutorial are the start of Monogamous May. The reason for that is I have been doing a model stitch. I can't show you that yet because it's an unreleased design, but at some point, I think probably around August, I will be able to show a Past Jess segment and show that to you all. That did need to get finished though. So what I've done is I'm starting Monogamous May as of now for 1 month, so from the 5th of May through to the 5th of June. I'm essentially extending it into June because I started late. I will only be stitching on Gamer. That is it. That is all. Nothing else. No small travel projects. No, I'm bored of this, so I want to try something else. No, nothing else. No new starts, which is going to be a challenge because I'm going to a retreat in a couple of weeks. The reason that I've picked this project is it is a great mix of lots of confetti. We've got the nice, easy, mindless background when I don't have the mental capacity for anything more complicated. You'll be able to see the picture here, I think. There are pops of colour. I'm not going to stitch her hair, which I guess is the biggest pop of colour. But for example, the retreat I'm going to in a couple of weeks is fantastical and unusual creatures themed. So I might I don't know, do the Sonic the Hedgehog or something like that. But basically there's different areas of colour, there's confetti and block stitching, so there is still variety in this, and I'm really looking forward to getting some really solid progress and seeing how far I can get in 1 month. That is my stitching plan. As I said, I've got a retreat in a couple of weeks, and also next weekend I am going to see my friend for her sort of not hen do. It's basically a very small, her and a couple of friends having like a crafty weekend and binge watching like a marathon of movies or whatever. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. What else is happening this month? John is away this weekend. He's also away for another weekend later in the month, and then when he gets back we're going to Cornwall for 4 or 5 days. My sister-in-law is she and my brother met through performing arts school at uni, and she now does a lot of amateur productions where they live down in Cornwall. So she's actually going to be in Les Mis at the Minack Theatre in Cornwall. If I'll put in a couple of pictures because I'm not going to do justice to explaining this place. I've never been before, so I'm really, really excited to go and see not only that amazing setting, but also see her in Les Mis, which will be really cool. And Gamer will be coming with me for all of it because it is all I'm allowed to stitch on until we get back from Cornwall. So alongside stitching on this, I have some sort of stitching adjacent plans. So I would really like to finish sorting out my DMC master set. I'm 99% sure I own all of them now, but not all of them have been put onto my little swatch cards and put onto floss drops in my master set. So that is one thing that I will maybe spend a couple of evenings finishing. I also have a new floss roll for one of my Gecko Rouge kits because they come with the floss. So my plan for that is get all of those colours onto floss drops so that I can put them in the floss roll, and that project is then ready to go and much more sort of transportable and easy to work on. Yeah. What else? I feel like I've got a couple more patterns that I want to digitise as well. So that will be another sort of stitching adjacent thing. Flosstube wise, I have one more plan, which is I'm gonna do like what I'm dubbing a retreat recap video. So as I said, I've got another retreat in a couple of weeks. At that point I will have been to 3 retreats and 4 stitchy days so far this year, which I appreciate is kind of excessive, but while I am doing such insanity, my plan is I'm going to do one now as like an early 2025 retreat recap, and then I've not got many retreats or stitchy days during the summer, and then I've got quite a lot in September, October, so I'll do another one after that. But basically just talking about the different retreats. Some are bigger, some are smaller, different price points, some have vendors, some don't. So I just wanted to sort of, for anyone new to the idea of retreats in the UK, give you a bit of a rundown of the ones that I've been to, and give you some ideas of like why you might choose one versus another, depending on whether you want more peopling, more quiet stitching, more shopping. Like, we'll talk about all of those things. And that's it. So we have one last giveaway and then we'll wrap up. So the last one is one of mine. So this is the chance to win one of these bags. So this is the small size that I do. I'm gonna flick through some of them. They are all handmade by me. There's a whole mix of fabrics. I was obsessed with rubber ducks when I was a kid, what can I say? It's another duck one. So these are all of the medium-sized bags that I have in stock at the moment. These are not currently available for sale. I have quite a lot of these small ones. I don't have many of the large and the extra large ones. They all sold at the Stitchy Day I went to a couple of weeks ago. So couple of weeks ago, last week. So for now, you can, the winner of this can choose any one of these medium-sized bags. And again, this one's open worldwide. Safe is the magic word, and you can choose any one of these bags. Cool, so that is everything. We've had 5 giveaways, we've had sewing method tutorial, we have had whips. I just want to finish off with another massive thank you to everyone who's given me a shout out, everyone who's shared or liked or left me a comment. Like, genuinely, I've been fairly open about this, but in the past my mental health has not been the best, and the fact that so many of you have engaged and sent me lovely comments when I've been self-deprecating it just, yeah, it's such an amazing community, and I'm so grateful that I took the plunge and sort of have done this. I do really enjoy sharing my cross stitching. Like, I have cross stitch friends, people who I've met through the stitching community, and bless him, John tries really hard. We had like a really in-depth conversation about like what in cross stitching is like something that you look at and go, wow, that's really skillful. So he puts in a lot of effort to sort of show interest and talk to me about cross stitch, but it's nice to share with you all and see other people stitching what I'm stitching, and see other people stitch something because I've stitched it. That still blows my mind. So yeah, I probably wouldn't have carried on doing this if it weren't for all of you, so thank you very much. Do enter the giveaways. I'm not going to recap them because I'll forget what the words were. I'll have to write them down when I do the edit. Yeah, I will, I should say, all of the giveaways will be drawn probably in 2 videos time, so at the start of June, so you do have like a whole month to enter those. Alright, I'm going to stop waffling. Thank you for watching. Just, yeah, thank you. Happy stitching. Bye for now.